Peach. And if I so much as raise my hand against her, she'd shoot me. It was funny as it could be. The first week we got married, we're still moving stuff into our house. And my wife comes walking in, she's got this little pistol case in her hand. And I was like, that's not mine. I was like, what is that? She goes, I don't know, it's a pistol. I'm like, where'd you get that? She goes, Daddy gave it to me. I'm like, oh. First thing I knew was going to find that sucker and take the bullets out of it or something. That's for me. So, again, I don't want to make light of any of that, right? But at some time we got to laugh, okay? To kind of lighten up what we're talking about. It's a very serious thing, right? There are different types of domestic violence. It's not just putting your hands on somebody, okay? You can be abused in a million different ways, and you may not even know some of them, right? Now, all this came from PsychCentral.com. This is a nationwide website. Okay, deals with all kinds of mental health and abuse type situations, right? But there are types of different types of domestic violence. Some of those like physical, and that's what we think about when we think about domestic violence, right? All right, it's the physical abuse, right? But the emotional is where 99% of it comes in, right? We're going to control you through fear, through blaming, through self-confidence issues. I'm going to make you feel horrible about yourself, and I'm the only one that can possibly love you. You see what I'm saying? Blaming, degrading. There's sexual violence. That does happen. By the way, ladies, if you're married, that don't mean they can just walk in and do what they want. Okay? I don't know what all the laws are nationwide, but in Georgia, the rape statute does apply in married couples. Okay?
Yes.
Cannot do that. All right? Verbal abuse, insults, criticisms, other verbal attacks, not attending to basic needs, negligence. I'm not going to take care of you if you cross me until you do what I say you're going to do. You're not going to get X, Y, Z. See what I'm saying? Technological. Tracking your movements. Controlling your social media. Talking to controlling who you talk to and when you talk to those people. Right? If you're in a relationship and you want to go hang out with friends, but they demand that they go to, so they can control the conversation. You see what I'm saying? Right? You gonna go to church? Okay, I'm gonna go with you. And right while I'm by your side, you're gonna smile from ear to ear. You know why? Because you're so scared of what I might say later. All right? That's abuse. Controlling your finances. We got one account, we got one debit card. If you want something, you come to me. Yeah. My wife and I have a joint account. God bless her. She runs the finances because the one thing I could not stand in school was math. That's why I became a cop, so I wouldn't have to do math. But yeah, we have a joint account, right? So we, now I call my wife. I'm like, hey, babe, listen, can I run down to the store and get me an energy drink? And she says, yeah, absolutely, right? That's because she's looking at the bank account. That's not because she's controlling what I do. Okay. You got to work together, right?
That's right.
Here's a big one that people don't think about. Immigration. Did you know that immigrants who are undocumented are a serious target for abuse? Because in a lot of cultures, the women are very submissive to their husbands.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's a cultural thing, right? But that's what abusers are looking for.
Yes.
So that is their type. And once that undocumented immigrant is in that relationship, now I can really control you. And we're not going to get married because I don't want you to be a U.S. citizen. What I want to be able to do is control that immigration status and go, listen, you're going to do what I say, when I say, I'm going to take what I want, when I want. Because if not, all I got to do is get on the phone and call the race. Wow. Wow. Right? And then, of course, stalking. If they follow you around, they keep eyes on you, they track your phone, right? Things like that. They call you on the phone, go, hey, what are you doing over here? I thought she said you were going over here. Right? That's a warning sign. We should be looking into that. Okay? And if you have an experience, I guarantee you, you might have talked to one of your friends that, they're in that type of thing. Right? And it seems like for some reason, in my professional experience, a lot of times, these women who are being abused, or even these men that are being abused, they're the ones that are the breadwinner of the relationship. They're the ones that have the means to do whatever they want. That's the reason the controller is so concerned with control, is they don't want to lose that meal ticket. I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to lose my, who is buying my groceries or paying whatever, right? And that's where the control comes in. All right. As far as resources go, I put a couple of these up here. National Domestic Violence Hotline, Salvation Army. We have the Salvation Army has a base here in Warner Robins, and we do have what we call a safe house for battered women, battered families who can come and stay. They have to have a police report, but they come and they stay there and they can get out of that situation. Okay. But what I tell people, especially in groups such as, they're coming from all over the place like this one here, is look into local resources, because a lot of times your national hotlines, they're going to give you generalized information. They're going to give generalized programs, and I don't have programs that can get you out of that situation right now. Okay? That's one reason I say definitely rely on your church family. Okay? Because you can call someone from the church and go, hey, I need to come over. And they can come over. Right? But also, like here in town, right, we have local resources where we can get people out of the situation immediately versus you got to jump through X, Y, and Z hoops to get out of this situation down the road. Okay? The family violence cycle is a deadly one. They say on average, the victim of domestic violence homicide will have gone through at least 7 different events before the homicide. And so they've had 7 different chances to walk away, and they keep coming back. All right. Nobody's worth that, ladies and gentlemen. My grandmother lived for 40 years before her divorce. The incident that led to that was a giant explosion. It was physical. I was 14 at the time. We were actually in South Georgia when this happened. It was physical. And then with the manipulation and control aspect, my father tried to intervene. My grandfather broke away from him, threatened to kill him, walked into another room, shut the door, and fired a pistol into the floor. He did that to try and make everybody think he had shot himself. When my dad broke into the room, my grandmother grabbed a shotgun and stuck it in his face, and my dad had to wrestle the shotgun out of his hands. When the local South Georgia Police Department that knew the pastor for 60 years showed up, well, that's the preacher. Well, his family obviously doesn't like him. So what we're going to do is we're going to hey, y'all go somewhere else for the afternoon, let things calm down. We're going to take the guns. What we found out later was the next day they walked up and go, here, preacher, these are yours. Gave him back to him. Wow. At that point, my grandmother said that was enough. She's not going to let that happen to her family anymore. She filed for divorce. He got remarried, temporary protective order. My grandfather was not at my wedding. He had no idea my kids had been born until my son was a baby. Later in life, my father made some amends, and the relationship was amicable until he died. I'll say this, the good Lord uses people, even abusers, in good ways sometimes, because in 60 years of in the ministry, there was a lot of people that came to Christ because of sermons. That didn't mean he was a good person. We're all sinners, right? But that incident with the police gave my grandfather back the gun that he just stuck in my dad's face is why I've been a cop for 23 years. Because I'm not going to be that kind of cop. That's right. Somebody got to fix that, right? Yes. Okay. Everybody good? You need a break? First thing she said when she came is, I'm ready to talk. Right. Yeah.
Somebody calls you,
right,
and that partner is always calling to find out who called my woman or who called my man. That's
yep.
a very big red
going through your phone. Lord, do you know how many domestics I've gone to because somebody went through somebody's phone? look, if they looking through your phone every 5 seconds,
There's a problem.
or they're scared to let you pick up their phone, there's an issue there, right? I'll be the first one. Listen, everybody's got their thing. Everybody does their own thing. I'm not judging anybody for anything. But my wife can walk into the room anytime she wants to and pick up my phone and go through it.
That's right.
Okay? We don't play those kind of games, you know? Absolutely 100%. So my friend came in the door and said she was ready to fight. Okay, we're going to talk about fighting. All right? But before we start throwing fists in here, we need to talk about a couple things. All right? So, Cornell Law, that's a fairly prestigious law school, okay? Cornell Law defines what a reasonable person is. Why is that important when it comes to fighting someone? All right? Because most laws, depending on where you come from, most self-defense laws in the United States are based on the standard that you're acting as a reasonable person.
Yes.
Especially here in Georgia, we have a fairly liberal law when it comes to defending yourself, okay? But it's still going to be based on what is a reasonable person. As a matter of fact, law enforcement, our use of force. If you've watched videos on I'm sure everybody's seen a video on the news or social media where law enforcement was forced to use force, right? And people talk, what? Well, they killed that person. They got away with it. You got to understand, use of force is looked at differently by the courts for law enforcement. It's also based on a reasonable standard, but it's not based on what a reasonable person would think. It's based on what a reasonable law enforcement officer with the same amount of knowledge, training, experience would have done in the same situation. Because we have a different skill set, a different training aspect, and so the laws are a little bit different when it comes to use of force, but it's still on what a reasonable officer or what a reasonable person would have done. So what is a reasonable person? That's a legal standard applied to defendants in negligent cases. Here we are talking about liability, right? All members of the community owe a duty to act as a responsible person undertaking or avoiding actions to risk harm, with the risk of harm to others. If an individual fails to act as a reasonable person with their failure injures someone, they may be liable for that person's injuries. Okay? This will be important in just a minute. Whether the person met the standard of a reasonable person is often a question of fact for the jury to determine, thus leaving a determination of whether an individual acted responsibly to 12 members of their community. This is why we have the jury system. Okay? So the way a person may act in Georgia may be reasonable to someone from Georgia. It may not be reasonable to someone from Illinois. Right? That's why if you get into something in Illinois, you're going to be judged by 12 people from Illinois. You see what I'm saying? A jury of your peers. Right? So, the reason we have juries of peers is to determine whether or not you are reasonable in your actions. Now it's starting to make a little bit of sense, right? All right? Not everyone is expected to conform to the general reasonable person standard, Robert versus King. The Minnesota Supreme Court held that a 7-year-old boy to the standard of an objective 7-year-old boy, right? If you're not a 7-year-old boy, you can't judge what a 7-year-old boy did, right? Because you're not thinking like a 7-year-old boy. That's where you're in that reasonable officer standard. Same type of thing, right? In Fletcher versus Aberdeen, the Supreme Court of Washington held that a blind person should be held in the objective reasonable standard of a blind person and not a sighted person, right? So again, jury of your peers. Are your actions reasonable under law? In Georgia, the use of force law is OCGA, the official code of Georgia, annotated 16-3-21. We have to know that by heart, okay? There's actually a different law for cops, by the way, 17420B. In this, it says you are justified in or using force against another to the extent that he or she reasonably believes that such a threat of force is necessary to defend him or herself, a third party, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. So what does all that mean in general terms? It means that if I walk into a gas station, right, and some dude is standing behind the counter with a mask on, pointing a gun at the clerk, I can do what I need to do to protect that clerk and myself, because that would be reasonable, right? Again, I can use force, or I can threaten to use force if I perceive that type of force is being used against someone else or myself. I can defend you, I can defend you, I can defend y'all, right? Seems pretty reasonable. Now, again, this is Georgia law. This may not apply wherever you're from. It's your duty to investigate what the use of force laws are in your area and make sure you're abiding by those, right? All right. Now, forcible felony, 7 deadly sins, robbery, rape, murder, things like that, right? Now, Georgia, but hold on now. We got to act like we got some sense, okay? So, you are not justified in using force in Georgia if you're the one that provoked it, first of all.
That's right. That's right.
You can't walk up to somebody and haul off them downtown and slap them, and then say when they attacked you, you were using self-defense. It don't work like that. This is what I had the hardest time in teaching my teenagers in the high schools. All right? If you're the one running your mouth and you get slapped, you shouldn't have been running your mouth.
That's right.
You started it. I don't care if they slapped you first, okay? Georgia law says if you provoke it, you cannot claim self-defense, okay? It says if you are, I don't know why this has to be explained, but if you're committing a crime or fleeing from a crime or attempting to commit a crime, you can't claim self-defense. Maybe it's you, right? Okay?
Right.
Some things shouldn't have to be explained, but listen, we're simple folk here in Georgia, okay? So it is what it is, all right? All right, if the aggressor was engaged in combat by agreement, what does that mean? Mutual combat. If me and my friend go, let's do it. You don't want to smoke, come on. And we go outside, and we go to throwing hands, that ain't self-defense. If we agree to be in a fight, it's not self-defense. Now, what it does say is if I get to get my butt whooped out there, and I tell her, well, I'm done, and I turn around and walk away, and she gets to the back of the head, that's self-defense, right? It says unless they disengage from the encounter and effectively communicate, I'm done, I'm no longer a combatant. If the force continues after that, now you are in self-defense. So what I'm saying? So again, you'd think some of this stuff wouldn't have to be explained, but everybody's gonna try everything to get us something, right? Now, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it right now, all right? If I have to defend myself, what do I need to say to justify how I defended myself? Okay? In law enforcement, we call these officer subject factors. This comes from a case law, a criminal case law, Supreme Court of the United States, Graham versus Connor. Okay? That's a very important thing for law enforcement because it defines what the reasonable officer standard is. Okay? Now, what this basically means is, what are factors that you need to be able to explain as to why you defended yourself in the way that you defended yourself, okay? Immediacy or severity of the threat. If someone's just shooting their mouth off and they're across the parking lot, well, if that's the case, you can't draw a gun and start shooting at them. Sometimes we might want to, but you can do it, okay? But what if they're standing across the parking lot over there and they pull out a gun? Can they hurt you from that distance?
Yes.
Then you might be able to explain why you pulled out a gun and did what you had to do, right? That is what we're talking about. Is it an immediate or severe threat? Okay? Conduct of the individual confronting you as perceived by a reasonable person. Okay? How are they acting? Are they coming at you aggressively? Right? What did they do to make you think that they were a problem? Right? Explain these things. And a lot of times right after a use of force, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute now, it's going to seem counterproductive for as a cop, but I'm going to tell you a phrase to remember in a minute. It's very important, okay? But Would a reasonable person think that this person was fixing to do you harm? You have to be able to explain that. And right after a use of force, right after a traumatic type incident like that, you may not be thinking in that train of thought. That's why it's important to think about it ahead of time and know what to think about, know what to say, know what to describe when law enforcement gets there, right? How can I tell you somebody was aggressive? Well, they were charging at me. Not walking towards me, charging at me, right? Well, they were coming at me. Well, how were they coming at you? Were they walking casually? Or were they running, right? Were they balling up their fists? Were they screaming and hollering, or were they just talking, right? It does make a difference, right? Because we all know the videos are going to come out, because everybody out there with a cell phone video, right? World star, no. So, again, what would a reasonable person believe that that person was doing, okay? Age, sex, relative strength, skill level, and injury sustained, level of exhaustion, or number of victims or attackers, okay? Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", about 285, okay? That's a big guy, all right? If it's me trying to arrest someone who is 4'11" and 90 pounds, use of force that I give has to be incredibly restricted, right? Because reasonably, it may not take that much force to affect that arrest. You say that. The worst fight I ever been in law enforcement, she was 5'2". She was 95 pounds. And it took 6 of us to get her in a jail cell. All right? That's because guys think when we fight with this, right? Someone punches me in the nose, I'm going to take a second and consider, is this really what I'm going to do? No. Ladies, y'all fight with that. And that heart right there, that emotion, I don't want to fight no woman. I'm telling you. That's how you get cut. All right? Size. Was your attacker bigger than you? Was your attacker younger than you, in better shape, physically? When if someone starts to come at you and all of a sudden they get into a kung fu stance, does that tell you something about them? Listen, if I get out of the car and I walk some dude in the MMA clothes and they start getting in a stance, I'm like, you get tased. No. That's a whole other skill level. Right? But that use of force is going to be dependent on that skill level. I'll be able to explain, they got to do a fighting stance, so I knew right then they had an amount of training. I didn't know how much training they had, so I had to do this to counteract that. This is what I'm talking about, being able to articulate why you did what you did. Okay? Level of exhaustion or fatigue. Listen, when you in an all-out fight, and I'm in an all-out fight, not just pushing and shoving, 30 seconds later, when I've been in fights at night, rolling in and out of traffic, Lord have mercy, the best thing in the world hearing is them sirens come. And my God, it seems like forever till they get there. I know my backup's on the way, right? But literally, when you've got that much going on, you've got to be able to explain, I got so exhausted at this point, I just had to go up here with it, right? All right? Effects of drugs and alcohol, the attacker's mental state, again, all of this stuff right here is how you explain why you did what you did. You see how I just turned and started bleeding towards her? Now I'm not crossing my legs like this right here. I'm taking a step back and out. Yeah, I know where my thread area is coming from. What kind of force do you need to use to defend yourself? Okay? That's your decision. All right? Not everybody's comfortable with carrying a firearm. And not every situation is built for a firearm. It seems like today everybody thinks you got to go with a gun. Come on now. The world's a much simpler place when me and you can go out there and fist fight and later on be playing basketball. Okay?
That's right.
But if you're not carrying, there's there's a lot of things that come with carrying a firearm, because now you have to be able to take care of it, you gotta be able to keep someone else from getting a hold of it. If you pull it out, you better be using it, because otherwise, there's a chance you might not have it in a couple seconds, right?
That's right.
So, do I need to go and take a professional class where I am trained in certain types of things? General self-defense, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kung fu, karate, all that stuff that's got like all these acronyms and stuff, okay? That's a personal choice, all right? If you don't feel comfortable carrying a firearm to defend yourself and a family, that's fine. Do some kind of training. That's also gonna help you if you do have to defend yourself. When you go to court and you say, I've actually attended this class and this class and this class, and I've prepared myself and I know what to do, that makes you a much more credible witness on the witness stand, okay? Now, if you gotta punch somebody, please do not take your thumb and put it inside your hand like that right there. Because we're gonna see each other at the ER, and it's gonna be painful, okay? Outside. All right? Make sure you lock that wrist. Because you don't want to hit somebody in that wrist like that. We're going to see each other in the ER. That's going to be very painful, right? So lock that wrist straight in or a slight angle. Okay, so yes. Hey, hips. Anybody here play sports? Sports? All right. Anybody play softball, baseball? Where's your power come from hitting? From your hips. When you hit, your power comes from your hips. Same thing with a punch, your power comes from your hips. Down here, all right, throw your weight into it, all right. Things that you're going to be taught if you take a professional class, okay? Ooh. Watch out now. Watch out now. Like I said, we're in Georgia. I believe in the right to carry a firearm. But again, if you choose to carry a firearm, be trained. Be trained how to use it, be trained when to use it, be trained how to take care of it and safely carry it. By the way, where do most ladies carry their firearm if they're carrying on their purse?
In their purse.
Why? If someone goes to snatch something from you, what are they going to snatch?
Their purse.
How are you going to get to your gun? I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a bad guy. I need to get something out of the purse. You need something out of it, then you can have it. Right? You have to figure out a way if you're going to carry a firearm to carry it on your person, so that you can do what you do. By the way, ladies, purses. My wife loves them crossbody purses. If they grab a hold of that and snatch it, you go in with it. Okay? Quick disconnect, little button you can look like a little plastic clip or something. Clip. Let it go. Let them have it. That ain't worth it. Be a good witness and call the cops. We'll catch him down the street, okay? Yeah, be careful with these crossbody purses, okay? Because that can seriously hurt you, especially if you got it. It's right here. They snatch it hard enough. I've had a neck surgery. I had a disc replaced last year. Okay, it's not fun. I don't recommend it. Okay. Again, your type of force that you choose is up to you. You know that little thing down there at the bottom is? No, down here. Down here. It's called a monkey fist. It's called a monkey fist. And what that is a keychain. It's got a strap on it. Inside of that is a steel ball bearing. And it's got a parachute cord wrapped around it to create a cushion. But that's like if you've got your, and my wife carries like this ball of keys like this big around, right? Got everything like hooked on. It's got a flashlight, got some hand sanitizer, I don't know, like a parachute or something. Your monkey fist goes on there, and that's to swing. And hit somebody upside the nugget with it. That's actually a very effective and very cost-effective tool to have. So you know. A monkey fist. Yes. All right. So, most of this up here we just talked about, okay? Again, if you're going to defend yourself, know the laws in your area that govern self-defense, know how to explain why you chose to use the force that you did at that particular time, okay? If you're going to carry a weapon, make sure you're trained not only how to use it, but how to retain it. So if you are in a fight for your life, you don't let someone take it away from you and use it against you, okay? Now, I told you about the phrase down here at the bottom. Okay? Listen to me very carefully. Okay? I tell you this, and this is counteractive to me as a police officer, okay? Don't get me wrong. We're just impatient, okay? We're going to get what we need anyway. But this is what I would tell my family, okay? Here's the phrase. If you ever have to use force to defend yourself, whether that be a fist fight or, God forbid, you have to fly again, okay? Here's the phrase. Officer, I intend 100% on cooperating fully with your investigation, but not until I talk to my lawyer. Talk to an attorney before you say anything. Here's why. You're going to be so emotionally compromised in that moment, okay, that you're going to start running off the mountain. And how many times have you been in an argument with somebody else and they said, but you said, I thought, well, that's not what I meant. I have to remind my wife this. I live in a very literal world. Everything has a meaning when you go to court, right? You don't want to mean something and say the wrong thing, especially when you're emotionally compromised. So the phrase is, I intend to cooperate 100%, but as soon as I talk to my attorney. Who's your attorney? Give me the phone book. I got several pieces of information in my pocket right here. But that blue card right there, that's the Police Benevolency Association, and that's my attorney. And I've been involved in things on this job before, and the boss comes up and says, hey, what happened? I'll tell you everything you want to know. I'm calling DBA first. All right? I do the same thing. I'm telling you to do the same thing. Okay? As a police officer, as long as you cooperate, we can be fine. But you ain't got to cooperate right this second.
That's right.
All right? Call an attorney first. All right? All right. Real quick. How long we got there, boss?
Question.
I know we're running low. Yes.
My question is in regard to, you had the pictures of all the different things we could use.
Right.
To defend ourselves. And I hear people say mace, and then there's also pepper spray.
Two different
The
things.
difference, yeah, what's the difference between those? And then also, you got a taser up there. but
Right.
My son bought me a stun gun.
Right.
So that I can have that.
All right. The difference there. Mace is for civilian use. It was designed for civilian use. It's not as potent. Pepper spray was designed for law enforcement use. It is commercially available to the public. It is more potent. I recommend pepper spray over mace. You can build up a tolerance to either one, but I recommend pepper spray. Taser versus stun gun. I carry a taser on my hip over here. That was the worst 5 seconds of my life. Okay? A taser shoots projectiles out that have cable attached to them. That's where it makes its electronic connection. So I can use that as at a standoff distance. They make commercially available tasers where it has 15, 20 feet, right? And those are designed that you shoot them, they start doing the funky fish over here flopping around, and you get out of town, right? A stun gun, you have to physically touch somebody. So those are better if they're up close on you, but you're not going to be able to use them as a standoff. That's the difference. Do we have time to go through the active shooter thing real quick? Maybe 10 minutes, 15?
So that depends. If you guys have any burning questions that you want to ask opposed to this, we can do that, or we'll go through this and be done. We're on borrowed time now.
It's up to y'all. I can do this active shooter presentation really quickly, or if y'all need to go, that's fine. Absolutely, we can do it another time, or we can maybe set something up where we do something online. So it's up to y'all.
I don't see anybody with questions. So, yeah.
Just finish? Okay. Real quick. Civilian response to active threats. All right, there's a difference between an active shooter and an active threat. Okay? Active shooter means they're doing what? If they're not shooting, then it's a credit. Why is that important? Because your dispatcher is going to be asking questions, and we live in a very liberal world. We need to know what's going on at that particular time. Okay? All these are different. Hey, did anybody know this is not a new thing? Mass shootings. The first recorded school shooting in the United States was in 1794. They've been doing it for years. Do you know why all of a sudden it's a popular thing? Social media. Social media. People see this as I'm going to go out. People are going to remember my name. They're going to put me all over the news for about 48 hours. That's why people were doing this, by the way. By the way, Georgia got into this in 1884. That was our way to stay classy. You know. FBI are very, very good at statistics, okay? They have not updated for 2023. The latest statistics on FBI.gov are 2022. There were 50 active shooter incidents in the United States in 2022. That was an 18% decrease from 2020 and 2021, okay? 25 different states, 213 wounded, 313 casualties. We had 4 of those in Georgia that were in schools. I'm sorry, we had 4 of those that were at schools nationwide, but one of them was in Georgia. It took place on a school bus up in Swanee. There are new trends. Everybody thinks active shooter, they think what? School, right? There are new trends, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think of why? The number 1 place for active threat in 2022 were open spaces, things like festivals, concerts, things like that. All right. Number 2 was commerce, shopping centers, okay, malls, things like that. Only 4 at education, residence, 2 at government, 2 at houses of worship, and 1 at healthcare. Why do you think?
Because they're guarded now.
More guarded.
Yeah.
Those are where we had problems in the past, right? So we spent a lot of time, a lot of money training for active shooters at schools, active shooters at government facilities, even houses of worship, because a lot of churches do security teams now, right? All right. I don't know if y'all saw that one a week or so ago up north, where the guy walked in and pointed the gun at the pastor and misfired.
Yes.
God bless that church member who tackled that guy. But let me just give you a point about it. I'm going to cooperate. I'm going to talk to my attorney. When he turned around that gun, did you see the look on his face? He was in total shock. He didn't know what to do. He was looking around. He didn't know what to, right? Emotionally compromised. He was not prepared mentally to do that. He just reacted. And then you could see it on his face. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we talk to lawyers, okay? Now, you've got to survive one of these incidents. If you already caught one, you've got to survive it mentally and physically, okay? The number 1 thing after a traumatic event that bothers me personally is the thought that maybe I could have done something more. That's what gets into your head. So if you can prepare ahead of time, and you can take steps to train yourself in things like first aid and calling 911, telling other people how to be calm during that situation because you've mentally prepared yourself, you're going to survive it mentally a lot better than someone who's not. We always want to pretend it'll never happen to me, and that's what causes the mental problems later, okay? Getting ahead of it. Now, this is what I'm going to be doing. If you call 911 and say, hey, they're shooting in the building right now, understand this. It's going to take me to get there. But understand I'm coming, and I'm going to bring the whole world with me. Keep that in your mind. They're coming, and you ain't never going to see cops like you saw cops that day, okay? We bring in the whole earth. I just need you to survive just a little bit longer, okay? Our 3 priorities when we get to something like this has changed a lot over the last 20 years. My number 1 priority is not you. My number 1 priority is to get in there and find whoever's doing the killing and stop.
Yes.
So if you're injured, I'm sorry. I'm going to step over you, and I'm going to keep right on going. It's going to seem like I'm ignoring you, and I am. Because my whole goal is to stop that person who stopped the killing. Once I've stopped the killing, now I'm going to stop the dying. Now we're going to start working on this other. Now, without getting into too many law enforcement sensitive operations, okay, just understand that while things are going on and I'm taking care of the people who are killing, other people are going to be coming in to stop the dying. It's going to be something that's happening at the same time, right? But then the third thing we're going to do is manage the chaos. So if you're locked down somewhere in a room, understand that's priority number 3, but I am coming, okay? Now, thing you need to do, get out of Dodge. Okay, if you can get out, get out. All right, nearest exit, best exit. Didn't we already talk about that? Okay, this is where it's all starting to come together, right? Okay, nearest exit, best exit. Can I get away? If the answer is yes, do it. By the way, if you got kids in school and something happens in school, tell them, get out. Don't worry about if they leave the school. The school's gonna be like, no, lock down, get out. Get on down the street somewhere. All right, we'll worry about if we can find you later. Okay? Listen, I work for the Board of Education. And understand, they are liable. So their biggest thing about locking down is I can keep track of you and I can tell people where you're at later. That is a concern for them. My concern as a police officer is get them out of there. All right? So, again, notify 911 as soon as you recognize there is a threat. 7 to 12 seconds. Every 7 to 12 seconds, someone gets killed. And that's a long time when the cops are 5 minutes out. Okay? So, notify 911. What are you going to tell them? Who, what, when, where, and why? It's very important to have accurate information. If you don't know, say, I don't know. Okay? You're going to be upset, and the dispatcher is going to ask you about 1 billion questions. Understand that the dispatcher is trying to give me every piece of information I can get to solve it as quickly as possible. So just be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's in the house.
Okay?
I'm trying to get.
If there are other people with you, if y'all happen to lock down this room right here and there's something going on out there, someone take charge. Start, hey, you and you, give me a list of everybody that's in this room right now. I need a name and contact information for them so I can get that to the dispatcher. Okay? That's going to help us in the reunification efforts later with your families. It's going to help us be able to find out emergency medical information and find out how many people we've got that we need to be accounting for. Okay? Little things you think about ahead of time. But if something's going on, you're not just sitting in a corner, scared out of your mind, and later on you're going to have mental problems because, oh my God, I'm a victim, right? You're doing something to fight back without pulling the trigger. And because you're doing something to help the problem, you're going to be a lot stronger later, okay, emotionally. Again, hold the line. We coming, all right? Deny. If you cannot get away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deny that attacker access to victims. So what does that mean? I'm going to get into a room and I'm going to barricade. I'm going to get as many people in there as I can, and then I'm going to barricade. Once you close that door, you do not open. I don't care if someone's banging on the door. They got to go find somewhere else that's their responsibility. Okay? Now, let's talk about a deep corner. Let's talk about a deep corner. What do I mean by a deep corner? Do you see the store right here?
Yes.
That corner right there is a deep corner. Okay? That means the attacker cannot see into that corner. If there's a window in the store and they go to look in that room, don't give them something to shoot at. That's a deep corner. That's a deep corner. Move everybody to those corners so they can't see from the door. Does anybody remember the Parkland shooting in Florida?
Yes.
The school shooting?
Yes.
What some people don't know is that attacker was able to bust out a window and a door and start shooting people from outside in the hallway into a classroom. They were not in the deep corner. Okay? Had they been all the way in the deep corner, you might not have hurt those people. Okay? So keep that in mind. We're denying them access to victims because the people who do this, that's all they care about is a count. As many as possible. Okay? So move to the deep corner. Once you get in there, now it's time to teach. If you have done this training, if you've done first aid training, if you have self-defense training, now is the time for you to teach others in the room, because what are we doing? If we're talking, we're breathing. If we're breathing, we're keeping our heart rate down. We're keeping people locked in mentally, and we're not letting the demons in. You see what I'm saying? The more we are able to teach people, and listen, ladies, y'all are naturally teachers anyway. Y'all raise kids. Some of y'all are educators, okay? Do what you know how to do. Because in that mind, if your mind is connected, you're going to survive a lot better. All right? Other considerations, your fight or flight is going to kick in, okay? Your tunnel vision is going to start to come in. You're going to have things called auditory exclusion. You may not hear people saying things. all right? You're gonna fight all of that by communicating, by talking, by engaging with people. Eye contact, I need you to do this, do you understand me? Get them to say yes back, okay? Don't just nod, yes, because again, y'all are breaking that fight or flight thing. Square breathing or combat breathing, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, let it out for 4 seconds, hold that for 4 seconds. Continue that cycle. What that does is that brings your heart rate down very quickly. When it brings your heart rate down, it breaks up that tunnel vision and helps all your senses to come back, okay? That's gonna help you communicate, it's gonna help you stay calm. Again, teach others, be leaders, short, simple instructions, make sure they give you a positive answer back to keep them locked in, okay? And give everybody hope. They're coming. It's gonna be a few more seconds. I think I can hear the sirens now. You know why? Because hope is powerful medicine. All right? That's what keeps us strong, right? It's hard to see that different ways of barricading, using doors to block handles. This type of door right here, this is great. This type of door right here, you have to keep this door closed. Tie a belt around that right there. Tie a belt around that right there. That door will not open then. All right. By the way, tourniquet. We talk about tourniquet. Do you know what the best type of tourniquet is that is not an actual tourniquet? No. A belt's leather. It's really strong, so it's hard to get it really tight. Silk necktie, or stockings. Silk necktie or stockings. You get that tied around the wound, about an inch above the wound, as high as you can get it, and then tighten that down until the blood stops. That's how you save lives. If you can teach people that, in that moment, you're going to save lives. People are going to remember you. Barricading. That door right there opens in, right? I'm going to take everything in the world I can, including that piano, to put in front of that door. The first responder, I ain't talking about first responder. I'm talking about barricade anything you can. Use everybody else. I need you, and you. Get that piano. Move it over here. I need you. Get those chairs. Stack them over here. Take charge. Okay? Because again, you're not gonna be able to say, I wish I'd done more later. Okay? All right, now, real serious before we end this. Worst case scenario. Now you can't get away. And now you can't hide. It's just you and them. Ladies, we don't like to think about this. Okay? None of us ever want to hurt the body. As a police officer, I don't want to hurt the body. Okay? At this moment, there are no rules. There's no rules. There are no laws. There is you, and there is someone who will kill you. They're not there to shoot you and walk away. They're there to kill you. They're there to kill your children. They're there to kill your family, your neighbor. All right? That is the personification of evil. At that point, you do whatever you have to do to stop them. I told my teachers, staplers, chairs, scratch, claw, kick, bite, there are no rules, there's no off limits. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the time when you do whatever you got to do. And he does not stop until they do. All right? That's a hard way to think, ladies and gentlemen. That's a hard thing to harden your heart like that. But at that moment, that's the only way you will survive. And it's what you've got to do. All right? One more thing. Physical, emotional, and mental manifestations are going to follow you after a traumatic event. That could be a car crash. That could be an active shooter type situation, okay? Let me tell you something. I know. I've been there, okay? I've experienced them. They're not fun, all right? What you need to know is however you're feeling after that event is normal because they affect everybody differently. You may not feel anything at all. You may be completely fine with what happened. You may not have a nightmare. You may not feel bad. You may not be depressed. You may have been like, heck yeah, I went in there and did what I had to do. And you feel bad about it because that's not who you are, right? Don't feel bad about it. You prepared yourself for the day of days and you survived. You're a survivor. Don't feel bad about that. If you feel absolute horrible because you had to take a life or you had to hurt somebody, that's okay. It's normal to feel that way. You're a human being, okay? What you need to know is it's okay to not be okay. If you're having nightmares or whatever, that's all normal reactions of the body to a traumatic incident. The key is to identify them and talk about it. All right? I had no idea how much the traumatic experiences in my career had affected me and my home life until I went to the peer counselor training and realized, man, I'm jacked up. Right? There are certain things about this job that I can't talk about without tearing up. But I can now talk about them because I have forced myself to. Okay? Talking about them does help. If you're not comfortable talking about them with family or friends, there are plenty of people outside that can talk about it. Listen, the best person in the world to talk about trauma is a cop. Call 911. What do you need? I just need to speak to a police officer. I have a personal problem. Officer, she'll go, hey, what's going on? Listen, I had this traumatic experience, and I don't know how to feel about this. Cop's like, you know what, me too. We'll sit down and talk about it on the front porch. All right? Trust me, we know. All right? Talk to somebody, get it out. Once you get it out in the world, once you know a problem, once you've named a problem, now you control it, right? If I can speak it, I can control it, and I can get better. By the way, PTSD, you know we're changing the way we describe that, by the way? PTSD is now becoming known as PTSI. If you have a disorder, that means something's wrong with you. Can you fix that if something's wrong with you? There's no hope in that. But if it's a PTSI, if it's a post-traumatic stress injury, you're a victim. That was something that was inflicted upon you. What can you do from an injury? You can heal. The power of the mind is an amazing thing, ladies and gentlemen. Talk to somebody. All right? Get it out there. Again, if you're having a problem after something, whether it be traumatic from a relationship or it be traumatic from a car crash or an active shooter, talk to somebody. Don't be afraid to reach out to other people who were involved. Check on them. Don't be afraid to reach out to the first responders who responded. Because trust me, they're going through the same things you are. We just wear a uniform. All right? We all in this together. All right? If you don't need anything from me, that's my information right there. That is a cell phone that's on 24 hours a day. If I do not answer it, leave me a voicemail and I will call you back. That's a government email. The government knows where to find me. I also have a bunch of business cards up here. Now, understand that the City of Warner Robins is going through some branding things right now. These are older business cards. This still says I'm the supervisor of the school liaison unit. I'm not. But the contact information is correct. So if y'all want a business card, by all means, there it is. Any questions before we go? Listen, thank y'all so much for sticking with me.
For being here and being a support as we try to bring this to you. If you have questions or something like that, like later on, I have the contact information as well, and I can pass that on to you. Other than that, we will see you at 7 p.m. for prayer.
Thank you.
Absolutely.